Okay, that's good. Yes, hello. We're back with Deep Images, and we're going to do yet another of our extreme film symposiums. Joining me once again is Sensory Stowers of Too Extreme for Mainstream podcast and the Homicide Highway YouTube channel. So she's now part of the Deep Images crew. So we've been regularly doing these kind of deep dives into just extreme and bizarre films. And by this time, we've already covered a Serbian film and Singapore Sling. So today we're going to cover Audition from 1999 by Takashi Miike and based on a novel by Ryu Murakami, Murakami, as they might say in Japan, more accurately, I don't know. But yeah, so we're going to cover this. It's a it's a very popular film. It's been covered many times before. I covered it on this channel solo a long time ago when I got the Arrow Blu-ray. But Kirsty's been doing a lot of research and has gotten me intrigued. So we decided, since we're both into this, we would make this our next one. So do you want to tell people kind of what this movie's about?
So, Audition, as you said, it was from 1999, and it's based on a father, Ioma, and the son, which I can't pronounce the name.
Shiga.
Yes, that's right. I can't pronounce the Japanese names, I'm sorry.
Well, his name's Shiga
Um,
because he's like junior, because his father's name's like Shigatoro Aoyama, and he's like Shigatoro Jr., so he's Shiga. But anyway, go ahead.
so in the beginning, you find out that he is a recent widower, and by this time, the son is now grown up, fully grown up into a teenager. And he then finds that his dad's lonely and everything like that. So he offers, well, why don't you look for a new wife? So he goes to his friend that he works with, and they set up a fake audition to find him a new wife. However, all the ladies that turn up to this audition think they're auditioning for a movie role or whatever it might be, but
Mm-hmm.
it's an actual fact for potentially for a new wife for Ioma. So immediately this girl comes in, Sammy, and he falls in love with her head over heels. And he looks at her resume that she hands over, and she's done a whole, story of who she is and everything like this. And he tries to find her references, but they lead to a dead end. Then she is waiting by the phone. She's obsessed about this phone call. You can see her in the room on one of the trailers where she's sitting waiting for the phone to ring. So the phone does ring, and it's Ioma on the other side. They go on a few dates together, and then he takes her to a seaside hotel, like resort type of thing. And she wants him to pledge his love to her. But it's in like a dreamlike state, like you were saying before, it was like a dreamlike state, and he wakes up a few times, but he then wakes up the next morning and she's nowhere to be seen. So he goes and looks for her, and he goes back to the place where she apparently did ballet as a young child. And he finds a man, which I think we'll go into shortly, who's not alive anymore. But then he gets to this bar that she previously worked at. The person that lives in this apartment complex just off the bar area tells Ioma about all this information, how it had a fire and a few people were killed, the owner was killed, and there was like a bit of an ear that they found, a couple of fingers, everything like that. And so you can see in the film, he's like reimagining all these like limbs and stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
the tongue.
but
Gotcha.
yeah, and then he goes home, and then he starts to get very woozy, and you realize as Sammy is at the house, she has saw a picture of his late wife that had passed away in early stages of the film, and she's drugged his drink, and basically she thinks he's just like every other man out there. And then she starts to torture Ioma, but then her son comes into the house and basically fights her off and gets up to the bottom of the stairs, and she dies at the end of it. But yeah, but that's the overall basic storyline of Audition. So
There's a couple of
Yeah.
confusing, well, deliberately confusing parts that we were talking about, like, um, well, first of all, I mean, I think they do actually make love, I guess, and she shows him her scar she got uh,
Yeah.
on her
Yeah.
legs, and then he wakes up
Yeah.
the next day and she's gone. So, and then he
Mhm.
goes on that quest or whatever. But some of the things that he finds out or starts to find out about, we also see like an objective point of view, like actual flashbacks of her, like
Yeah.
with the old man in the wheelchair that you mentioned that he encounters, and
Mhm.
his feet have been cut off. He has these wooden feet, and he's kind of a lunatic, but he's like a piano teacher, so he taught her. He accompanied her when she was learning ballet or whatever. Um, but when he finally gets to where he gets back home, and his drink is drugged, uh, then he wakes up and she's with him
Mhm.
and he proposes to her. Um, but then it turns out he's right back where he was. He's being wakes up and he's being tortured by her. So it's kind of like this is a literary device that's been used a lot. I think I think Ambrose Bierce was one of the first people who used this, like an occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge, which was adapted into a French film in the late '50s and was aired as an episode of The Twilight Zone, even though it wasn't a Rod Serling story. And in occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge, the guy is about to be hanged, and then he is given a reprieve. He gets off the gallows, and he goes and starts to live his life. And then right when things are getting good for him, he wakes and realizes he's still there with the noose around his neck. So and then he died. He's hung.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
the movie Brazil used this too at the ending, uh, where our main character thinks he's they call it the love conquers all cut, where he supposedly wakes up and it's like a happy ending, but then he wakes up again and he's still in this chair being tortured by these totalitarian people. um, so that kind of reminded me of that a lot, that idea that you think the protagonist is in the free and clear, and they're right back where they started, if not worse. But what confused me when I watched it the last time, I had not seen it in a number of years. I've seen it a number of times, but uh,
Mhm.
it had been a while. And when I got the Blu-ray, I watched it, and I was trying to remember how all that went, and I started thinking, well, uh, when he wakes up the next morning and she's gone, for a while I was starting to think everything from then on to a certain point was all in his head or all a dream.
Mhm.
But it did really happen. I mean, that way he does
Mhm.
go looking for her, but she's kind of, I guess, evading him, and then she comes back to his house while he's out looking for her. Um, but it's those flashbacks of her true nature starting to, be shown to the audience that make it a little
Mhm.
bit confusing, because it goes from like a subjective point of view to an objective point of view. Um, but yeah, definitely though, by the time uh, when he gets back, yeah, his drink is drugged, and yeah, he wakes up and it's really messed up. So yeah, she does some horrible things to him, and she'd already done this to other people. I mean, well, the teacher guy, she had cut his feet off uh, with a wire piano string.
There was
And
actually a scene as well where she was behind him, wasn't there, where she had the saw around his neck as well.
yeah, she kills him.
And just, yeah,
His head
yeah,
goes flying
cuts his
off.
head off as well.
Now
Yeah.
that's another thing that's confusing, because something I read this morning said that how could Ayama go see him if he's already dead? Like, I mean, he's already been killed by her, but I think he was killed by her after Ayama saw him. If that's the correct order, where they put their sequences in with him searching for her.
Mhm.
But it gets confusing because it flashes back and forth, with her as a child and him torturing her. And basically he took these like super hot like little staves and like branded the inside of her thighs. And
Mhm.
it's strongly implied that as he gets closer up to between her legs, it's strongly implied that that he molested her, if not raped her, or maybe even burnt her there too. And it's pretty awful. So, but that seems to be what made her on the road to being psychotic. And then the guy who
Mhm.
died at the club, um, uh, they found, the police found, the three fingers and a tongue and an ear.
Mhm.
Um,
The tongue, that was it. Yeah, the tongue. Yeah.
and we've been seeing her in an apartment waiting on his phone call with this giant burlap bag, and
Mhm.
then it shifts like there's something moving inside of it. And of course, the first time you see the movie, well, you if you're unsuspecting, you might think it's like an animal, but if you've seen horror movies, you probably immediately think it's a person being in there. I did anyway, and sure enough, it is. And when
Yeah.
the truth comes out to us, the audience, not yet to our main character, about what she's like, we see her in the apartment with the bag, and the guy crawls out of the bag, and it's supposed to be the guy who died from the club, or who's missing these body parts. And sure enough, this guy has no tongue, he's missing three fingers, and he's missing an ear. And so he can't talk, and he kind of grunts, and she's like reduced into this animalistic state. And so she like vomits into a bowl, and he laps it up. So it's really charming. That's actually not that graphic compared to like the last movie we covered,
No.
vomit in it, but still, the idea is pretty gross. But he's like completely like, uh, I don't, the way they did the makeup on him. I mean, it maybe I just have a sick sense of humor. It's almost comical because he's like, he's like this, just this kind
Yeah.
of vegetable, loping around the floor, and
I remember, sorry, I remember when I first watched it, I thought, oh my God, he's at the point of no return.
yes,
That's what I thought.
I can't remember if she cut off one of his feet as well, so he couldn't run away. Maybe so. I can't remember how much they show of his body. I know he's like mostly naked. Man, I turned my phone volume down, and these scam people are determined to somehow get through to me anyway. So let me turn my phone off for a bit, because this is
We get that all the time.
I do too, and I've been lucky it hasn't happened to other times that we recorded. Um, hold on, I'm trying to get it turned off, and it's like not responding here. Okay, I think it's all right. Um, so yeah, so obviously, she's a deranged person, but the thing is, she seems so genteel and sweet.
I
At
know.
least to him, I mean, I thought she seemed a little bit almost too good to be true, but I guess that was the whole point of the story.
Are you
Is
referencing during the interview phase when he was interviewing
Yeah,
her,
he's
the
very
questions?
coy.
Yeah.
She's very coy, and it's like she's
Very
telling you like kind
softly
of what he wants to
spoken.
hear.
Yeah.
She's like
Yeah.
the perfect submissive Japanese wife type,
Mhm.
and that's kind of what she's I think she's just kind of pretending to be that way, and that she's definitely messing with him. And maybe she is genuinely trying to find a man who will just love her and only her. But if she feels like they don't, then that's what she does to them. Maybe that's what she did to the guy at the bar. I don't know. um but she's jealous of his son too.
Yeah.
It's not just that he was married, but the fact that he has talked about his son, and then the son's there, and then she's kind of like, okay, well, that's it. You love your son, so you don't only love me. So you lied. You're like every other man. um
Mhm.
that's a kind of big leap to conclusion to come to. Um
Yeah.
but I read that a lot of some people interpreted this as feminist, and in some ways they meant it that as a good thing, and in other ways they meant it as kind of a bad thing. um
Mhm. Yeah.
I don't know. I can't. It's kind of probably an insult to feminists, though, to claim this character is really having any kind of feminist agenda. I don't think she has an ideology. I agree with this one critic, Robin Wood, they quoted, so she didn't really have an ideological um, motivation. She's just kind of, I mean, she
Mm.
obviously hates men, I guess, and she's kind of psychotic, and she's, a victim of childhood trauma and abuse and whatever. Um, but I don't really feel like she is supposed to be perceived by the audience as some kind of heroine, like a rape revenge heroine. I don't personally think so. I don't know. What do you think?
No, just when you were explaining about that, like all I had in my head was like her, like with her being abused when she was younger and grown up, and maybe there was a lot more men that we don't know about speaking. Like this is a true story, of course, not that it's fictional, but she's had so much trauma in her life, and all she wants is that one man just for herself,
Mm-hmm.
and she just takes it way too far.
Yeah.
And this is the repercussions of it.
Yeah.
When she comes in and drugs his drink, sees this woman. I don't know if in the film she thought in her head, oh, he's still with someone.
I'm not
Um,
sure. I know she found out about his son, and that was a big point problem she had, that he loved his son. Which even
mm,
that's his son. She doesn't even want him to love his son in addition
no,
to her. You know. But
yeah,
but yeah,
true. Yeah.
she did know he was a widower, but I'm sure seeing that picture didn't help. Like, why are you still keeping this picture when you said you're just supposed to be with me? He just hadn't had a chance to put it away
Yeah.
yet. I mean, it's an innocent mistake, but whoops.
Yeah, yeah.
What How do you feel about his character? I mean, do you feel like his intentions are good? Do you think he's sexist by trying to find these, like the perfect young prim pretty girl, um to do all this for his audition, or what? Because that seems to be a controversy with some people too, as to not so much whether he like exactly deserves it, but that maybe he's part of a bigger problem with men.
To be honest with you, the version of him that I got was that on screen is a father figure. He deeply loved his wife. You can tell that. And I think, in a way, he could have potentially been looking for a woman that was identical to his wife, maybe. Um, but that's just in my head how I thought when they did the audition and everything. But I think his overall character was he was a lovely father, and he just wanted the best for him, for his son, the ideal woman to come into his life, which I mean, who doesn't want that really when you think about it? Um, but yeah, I don't think he was sexist at all, because when you think about it, there was a lot of attractive women that come into that interview room.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think because the fact that he fell in love with her straight away, he was head over heels with her straight away. It's like he was looking for the perfect, and she was so softly spoken, like you were mentioning. She was very, mature in a way, and she was sitting properly, she was sitting nicely, and she was answering the question straightforward, and she didn't seem to be hiding anything. Of course, she's a good person for that, as in, manipulating him into what he wants to hear, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I loved his character on screen. You could see
Mm-hmm.
he was just wanting the best, and he was just wanting to find this woman, and he give her a chance. And yeah,
I think some
I
people
mean,
are arguing that because she has that kind of like, she did have that kind of demure submissive personality, that Japanese men are too have been too lulled into looking for that as their ideal, and a woman who doesn't fit into that
mhm.
is not worthy of passing the audition.
Yeah,
And so
that's
those
another thing I
women end up
thought.
alone.
Yeah, that's another thing I thought as well. But when you said that there, like these ideal submissive Japanese women, is he could have also been brought up with that as well. His parents might have been like that, and that's all he saw growing up. So this
Yeah.
is why he's looking for that particular kind of woman.
Mm-hmm.
If you were only brought up with that sort of attitude with two people, and it's the way of life for you, you wouldn't really look for anything else, really, would you? Um, so yeah, but
And
yeah,
that, yeah, that was encouraged, that I guess has been traditionally encouraged in that society, but I'm sure things are a lot have become different in modern times, but um
mm,
and I think that's probably where the thing is, I mean, can you expect a man of his generation to because he's probably significantly older than her, a man of his generation to look for a woman who's more, or be excited by a woman who's more liberated or more gregarious, maybe he
mm,
feels like this is the ideal. So it could still be a commentary that that's not a good thing for women in general, but that's just how Japanese society has traditionally been,
mm,
without him being necessarily a bad character, a bad person.
mm,
Um,
yeah.
he's like just part of the Zeitgeist. I was going to look at this thing here. I'm looking on Wikipedia. Good old Wikipedia. Um, yeah, so Ryo Ishibashi played this guy, or Ishibashi, however you say it, and
Mm,
he's a really good actor. He plays a Yoyama, and he's also in Sion Sono's movie Suicide Club, which is a great one. Have you seen that one?
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
That's an intense one too. Sion Sono is kind of, his stuff is a lot like Miike's. I mean, he does like a whole variety of different genres, and he gets very extreme, and then he gets very kind of satirical and absurd and surreal at the same
Mm,
time. I
okay.
I like him a lot. Those two are probably my favorite current Japanese filmmakers. But um, yeah, and then okay, right. He has a friend named Yoshikawa. I like that actor. Um, Jun Kunimura. I can't remember what else he's been in, but the guy who plays the piano teacher or old man in the wheelchair, Renji Ishibashi, he's been in a bunch of Miike movies, and he often plays a real sleazy, degenerate old guy. Like in Gozu, he plays. I'm pretty sure he's this guy who plays the head of the yakuza who has to use like a ladle up his ass to stimulate his prostate so he can have sex, and that proves his undoing in the end.
Oh God.
But Gozu is my favorite Miike film. It's like totally surreal, and that was his. He said it was his attempt to kind of homage David Lynch, have that same kind of weird, surreal
Mm,
feeling, like you don't know what the hell's going on.
mhm,
But yeah, Miike's done some great stuff. And this was not the first one of his I saw. I saw City of Lost Souls, which was a crime film. I did a blind buy of that years ago at Borders, and it was okay, but I was a little disappointed. And then I got Happiness of the Katakuris, which is a horror musical comedy, and had some crazy effects and crazy song numbers. But it's also a remake. Well, it's one of his few
mhm.
remakes. It was a remake of this Korean film called The Quiet Family. Uh, I believe Bong Joon Ho did the Quiet. I think Bong Joon Ho is the guy who did Parasite and Snowpiercer. Uh, I want to say it's him, or it could be. I get some of these Korean names mixed up. I feel terrible. Um, but The Quiet Family had Choi Min Sik before he did Old Boy. It had Kang Song Ho before he did the more popular movies with Bong Joon Ho. He's the star of Parasite and Snowpiercer and some other ones. And it's more of a comedy. It's less supernatural. But it has kind of a, basically the people come to the inn run by this family, and once they get there, they can't get out. So it's kind of like Louis
Mm,
Buñuel. They can't ever get out of the inn. They can't leave. And in the remake, Miike pushes it more into like this idea that they end up accidentally killing all these people. The people who run the family runs the inn ends up accidentally killing everybody who comes in under all these different ridiculous circumstances, and then they come back as zombies, and then they can't get rid of them, and then they sometimes they have these musical numbers, and sometimes the zombies uh join in and sing and dance with them too. So um so that one I highly recommend. But that's the second one. So finally I saw Audition, and that was kind of more what I was, by that time I was real intrigued by him. And but that one was different. Audition's different than a lot of his early movies because it's much more somber and real tightly
Mhm.
made, suspenseful, more drama. um I think it's his other movies during that period are just like anything goes, and they're kind of all over the place, and that's what's exciting about him. But Audition, it's like he's telling this one story, so he has to keep it really tight and suspenseful to kind of for maximum impact, so that when he does bring out the torture and the extreme elements, they're that much more powerful, because you're kind of expecting those elements from some of his other movies almost from the beginning. Like Ichi the Killer, you're expecting from the beginning it's gonna be nothing but what it is. And
Yeah,
but
yeah.
in this one, you don't really know going in. And I still think it's one of his best made films. Now I do think some of his recent films have been just as well made as far as like tightly crafted and like beautifully shot. But his overall his production values have gotten better. But he's been doing these for well, really not that long. I think he's in his 60s. He's only been doing films for 30 years, a little over 30 years, but he's done dozens and dozens and dozens of
Mhm.
films. And a
Yeah.
lot of the first ones were direct to video and stuff. I think Auditions like in his maybe among his first five feature films since 99. Now since 2000 he's done a ton of movies. He's very prolific. And he hasn't really had a critical hit like that yet, but some of his movies have gotten fairly big. I mean, like Blade of the Immortal, which was based on a manga, that 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 crossed over in America. That had a significant theatrical run and became pretty
Mhm.
popular. I didn't see it in the theater. It played here like a week and I missed it, but I did get the Blu-ray later. Um, and it's pretty cool. It's like samurai, but it's got like a lot of supernatural elements. And then 13 Assassins, which was a remake of an older film. That one was really critically acclaimed. He did later start making more remakes, and that kind of divided people. Most of his movies are original scripts, but he also remade Harakiri, which was a great film from the 60s,
Mhm.
by Kobayashi, and really one of the great samurai films of all time. And his remake is, I mean, it's fine for what it is. It's Miike. It's pretty well made. It's got good action,
Mhm.
and but it does it's not moody like the other one. The other one's really long, and it's in black and white, and it's kind of centered around this one really intense performance. Whereas this one, the remakes, some people I know love the original, hated the remake. I didn't hate it, but I just sometimes some remakes just seem kind of pointless. But at least I
Mhm.
know. And another movie he did that had some crossover appeal, which was weird, was Sukiyaki Western Django, where he did his version of Spaghetti Western, and he put Django in the title as a homage to the Django films. And he actually did this a few years before Tarantino did his Django, whatever you want to call it, pastiche, which really had nothing to do really with Django. Um, but the funny thing is he got the idea to do this from Miike because he was a fan of Miike's and he championed Audition, and so Miike cast him in this western. Quentin Tarantino, of course, as usual, his acting is just wretched. But but it's so kind of
Yeah.
campy that within the context of the movie, I guess it's okay. But that's a really strange movie because he had all none of the Japanese cast could speak English, but he had them all deliver their lines in English phonetically, so they didn't even really know what they were saying. So they have this weird, their accents are really strange. Um, and it also has a lot of surreal elements. It has little homages to the 60s Django Italian film, um, but yeah, I mean, he's just very much a cult kind of director, and I think that's cool. I mean, I don't think he wants to be mainstream, and he said he didn't really understand why Western audiences liked Audition or any of his movies, and he wasn't going to think about it either because he didn't want to tailor his movies to suit them. He just wanted to keep doing what he wanted to do. So I have
Yeah.
respect for that. Um,
Hats off to the guy.
yeah, exactly. So, do
Yeah.
you have any further thoughts on this? I know you did a lot of research on this.
I did a lot of research, but there is one scene in particular which I think is quite airy. I mean, the whole movie in sequences with Asami is quite airy, especially with the telephone where she's bending right over. That's quite airy. But what really gave me two thoughts in my head when I seen this scene and what she was doing was, A, she's completely lost it, and two, that is kind of creepy, is when she's torturing Ioma at the end. She's got the saw. It just says these words, many words, over and over and over again.
Kitty, kitty, kitty.
Yeah, kitty, 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 kitty. And I was just like, oh no, that's
Well,
creepy.
it sounds like kitty to us, but it's just the way it's pronounced. Kitty, it's really kitty. It's
Yeah.
and I forgot what it means, but I read that
Um,
that wasn't in the script. That did you
no,
read
she,
that? That she just started
I've,
whispering it while they were
yeah,
filming it?
so the research that I got was the torture scene at the end of the film did not initially contain Asami's lines, kitty, kitty, kitty. Sheena was initially whispering her lines while filming this scene, but after discussion with Miike, the two decided that having her say these lines would make the scene creepier. Um, but yeah,
It's become
but
pretty
apparently,
iconic. It kind of like as
yeah,
soon as she does it the first time, then you're like every time she starts to say it, you're like, oh no, here goes some more torture.
yeah, 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 it's pretty iconic, yeah. Creepy.
Asmi Yamazaki. That's Yamazaki. That's she's an iconic character now. I have a friend on Facebook who is Italian and a film buff, and I don't know what her real name is, but she goes by Asami Yamazaki on on Facebook.
Right.
And when I first friended her, I was like, she's not Japanese. It took me a little bit. Then I was like, oh, wait a minute. That's that character from Audition. So it's just like, that's her favorite character. And sometimes I saw online, I don't know if anyone actually made these, but I saw these like fake action figures of Asami where she's, got the gloves up to here and the apron and the string and the wire
Yeah.
as her accessories. I'm sure somebody somewhere made those really. But definitely she's probably the most iconic female horror villain that I can think of, at least from Asia in the last generation. I don't know. I mean, I can't really think of any others.
There is one female in a film. The film's called Sweet Whip.
Hmm.
And it's based on this girl that got abducted by a sadist and she escaped. But then later on she got off on getting pain and then she flipped it and she takes it out on this sadist at the end.
Hmm.
So that was pretty powerful. So
When did
I
that
think
come
she
out? You think?
um I watched it not long ago. I'll quickly get it up here. So
Was it a fairly like last few years or?
it is a while ago.
Okay.
Hold on. Mm, It's not coming up as a movie when you just type in Sweet Whip.
So
Um,
that's like an alternative English title.
yeah.
I wonder what the real name of it is. There are definitely a lot of over the top, fascinating female characters in Japanese genre cinema. Um, but
Mm,
but she just this Asami, she kind of is kind of like that Barbara Steele level of like everybody recognizes her image from this movie. I mean, it's just but I don't know if she's still acting. She had not acted prior to this. Uh, I did see her in another movie actually. Not long ago, I saw her in another movie, and I didn't know it's the same woman at first, and I'd have to look up what film it was, but it was pretty good, but I can't remember what it was. So her name's Ihishina.
Right.
So what movies did I see her in after?
Ah, this movie, Sweet Whip, was from 2013.
Okay.
Directed by Takashi Ishii. I think that's how you say it.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, but it's a Japanese erotic drama. But she's pretty hot in it, I'm not gonna lie. Like when I seen her on the film, I was like, "Oof, she's nice." So I do like Japanese women. I think they're really attractive. I don't know what they do,
Oh, they
but they
are.
age gracefully, and it's like,
Oh,
what
they
are they
do.
doing?
Yeah,
But yeah.
Asian women are like African women. They age better than us white people do. It's their skin. Something about their skin. I mean, I'm serious. Um so
Hmm.
she what did I say her name was again? Ihishina. Oh, there's a picture from 2015. Yeah, the one movies I've seen her in. She was in Tokyo Gore Police. She was one of the main characters. She also had a part in Vampire Girl versus Frankenstein Girl. Um, she's in the Profane Exhibit, which was an anthology film, as one of the characters called the Hell Chef. Those three I've seen. Hell Driver is one that she's in that I wanted to see, and I don't think. Well, maybe I have seen it.
Tokyo Gore Police, that rings a bell.
Yeah, Tokyo Gore Police is just it's kind of one of these. There's a whole bunch of these in the 2000s that were kind of science fiction horror over the top. Yeah, actually, she is the star. She plays Ruka, the vengeful police officer. Uh, and Yeah, I saw that very recently. I'd seen it a while back in part, but I finally saw it all the way through, like within the last year or two. And came out in 2008. Yeah, directed by Yoshihiro Nishimura and stars Ihishina as Ruka. Yeah, and she's kind of got a yeah, she kind of has like a suit and tie, but also like a leather skirt and fishnets and a giant samurai sword. And I think she pretty much battles yeah, she battles all kinds of strange foes. But she was a cool character, and her stunts are really interesting. But I didn't recognize her. I didn't even know until after I saw it this last time that it was the same actress who was on audition. So she has
Mhm.
done other things. So she's kind of stayed in this genre area. She was also in Takashi Kitano's Outrage, which I've also seen that, and I didn't recognize her in that either. Um,
Right.
she was in Koduku Meatball Machine, which is a really crazy extreme movie. I've seen that one too, but I don't remember. I don't remember her part. I don't remember much about the plot. Just some of the imagery is pretty grotesque, um, but I quite like these. I love Japanese genre films, and I think their stuff is pretty inventive even now as far as like what they shoot for very low budget on video.
Mhm.
They're able to get some really nice values and some just crazy effects, just very creative. But
Mhm.
um, but yeah, that's a story for another day, but audition, yeah. So any final thoughts on this?
Um, there is two thoughts I have. Number one, go and watch it. You'll not regret it. It's a, it's a nice sort of like build-up type of film as well. Because you get a little bit of the gore, and then it goes back to the story, and then you get a little bit of gore, gruesome, and then it goes back to the story, and then it's a build-up at the end. So it's a nice gradual build-up type of film. It's yeah, I love the film. Like I
Yeah.
said to you, that's why I mean that's why I'm talking about it with you. It's in my top 10, I would say.
Wow.
Um, But yeah, but I also did read something as well about the main actress in Audition. There was something I read, and it's on my document. I was just trying to look for it, but I can't find it just at the minute. But apparently she used to be a previous model,
Yeah.
before she went into movies, which I did think to myself, I can see how the modeling thing happened because she is an attractive actress.
Yeah.
Um, so I could see that. But I think she's great on camera as well. Like, for this being I think one of her first movies she's done, um, she did a fantastic job of portraying the character she was portraying. But yeah,
I think it's only
definitely
her
go and watch
second
it.
movie she was in, and it's only her. It was
Oh,
her
okay.
first starring role. Um,
Right.
uh, yeah, but it's funny because she has that kind of very kind of porcelain kind of doll look, and just the really
Yeah, she does. Yeah.
severe hair, and really pretty. But these other movies I've seen her in, she's much uh more made up, more sexualized, more tougher, more of an action character, very very different. So I don't know if
Yeah.
that was a conscious decision, or if she wanted to do something different, didn't want to be typecast in as audition kind of character, which is understandable not to want to be. um but I think that
Mm.
makes that performance really all the more singular, because now she seems like she's kind of found a niche within these kind of over the top, like cyberpunk kind of genre hybrid horror movies. Um, but yeah, she's great.
Mm.
And the more she talks in those other movies, she is a competent actress as far as, like, emoting. She's very cold and deadpan in Audition, and which is very effective. But you don't really
Mm.
get. Uh, I don't know. She's just so psychotic that you don't really get any kind of depth of her feelings. It's all filtered through this
No.
kind of this horrible view of the world and men she has, I guess. Um,
Mm.
but yes, she's very good, very striking, and yeah, it's a modern classic. So
Yeah.
I I guess I saw it first about 4 or 5 years after it came out. I had just word of mouth, and in the magazines like Rue Morgue and those kind of magazines, I was reading about it. Um, Fangoria, I think, had something on it. It was back when there were a lot of magazines around, and I worked at a bookstore. But it didn't disappoint me, and it is still pretty effective after having not seen it for a while, and then seeing the Blu-ray, and it's been really nicely remastered. It's just stunning to look at, and it is very creepy, all the way through. I mean, even though it's got drama and some little humor here and there, bits between the main character and his boss and the main character and his son, there's still like this kind of unsettling feeling underneath. Like, you kind of want things to be
Yeah.
work out okay, but you kind of have this feeling they're just not going to work out.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. Like, and I also did think as well, like, oh my God, poor guy. Like, it was just watching him. I was like, poor guy, all he wants is a woman, and this is what he gets. But yeah, that's testament to how good all of the actors are, though, because
Hmm.
you feel for them. And to me, if you don't feel for the characters, it takes you out of the movie, and you just don't enjoy it. And
Definitely.
I felt for the main character straight away on screen, with
Hmm.
just how loving he was to his son, and how loving the son was to his dad, like the correspondence they had on screen. And
Yeah, this
it just seemed
son actor who played the
natural.
son was good too.
Yeah, it just seemed to come across natural.
Yeah.
Like you were seeing inside of their lives as like what was going on. So
Hmm.
that's also what captivated me with the movie. Yeah.
When you can seek out the Suicide Club, sometimes called Suicide Circle, by Sion Sono, because he stars in that, but in that one he's a detective, and he's trying to unravel this really strange chain of mass group suicides that are tied into these serial killings and this cult, and
Mhm.
it gets more and more just off the hook as the movie goes on. And he kind of is like the anchoring force, trying to like puzzle this thing out. So but that's the only other movie I've seen him in, but he is excellent. So I guess we're going to wrap up our look at Audition. And Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for joining me as usual. And remember to like and subscribe, please, to the channel. We really need the kind of push over the finish line so that we can get the 500 subscribers. We're getting close, but uh, soon, hopefully. And we'll have more of these kind of shows for you, and also more of the group topics and more interviews. So, and today that I'm recording this, this is the 1 year anniversary of our first episode dropping. So it's really awesome, and to celebrate, not only am I doing shooting 2 sessions today, this one and then one in the evening with some of the other folks, but also today I posted the Yvette Izan interview, which I'm really proud of, that Tim and I did. So check that one out too. So take care. Thank you.
Hi, this is Tim Tolbert, and this is my co-host Henry Covert on the Deep Images podcast, and you just watched one of our excellent symposiums. If you want more of this content focusing on cult TV and films, be sure to like and subscribe. We have a lot more planned for you guys.
Thank you so much.